Good morning. This is Emily Freitag at Instruction Partners. Today is April 8th. The number of cases continues to grow, as does unemployment, as do the number of schools that are closed for the balance of the school year, leaving many families and teachers wondering, how do we help students be ready for their next school year? More than anything, we are finding this is a stress test for leaders, for school system leaders, and for school leaders and principals on how to reimagine school on a dime. We are sharing today leadership toolkits that are designed to give more specific key actions and discussion questions that leaders can work through with their teams. We hope they may be of use. Keep us posted and take this one step at a time together.
Hi, thanks for joining me. My name is Valerie. I work for the Instruction Partners team. I am a director of instructional support, and I'm super excited to really keep with the work of providing schools with the resources they need in response to rapid closures. So we have our resource hub, and if you haven't accessed it, here it is. And I'm going to dive into what our next level or iteration of work has been around this hierarchy of needs. Now, if you haven't been to our page before or you haven't heard about the hierarchy of needs, largely what was happening is we were partnering with schools, creating creative solutions around these concerns. And then when we compiled all of the trends behind those concerns, we really put them all in this framework to help leaders and at the school and system level really devise a plan around how to address all these needs and how to prioritize them. And so we provided a lot of resources in each of these focus areas. And then from that, a question began to surface, which was, how do I lead work around each of these focus areas? And because of that, we designed and developed leadership toolkits. So I'll take you through that. You'll see a link right there. And when you get to the leadership toolkits, what you'll see is the hierarchy of needs again. But what's happening right now is you'll see the functionality has shifted a bit where you're able to click right into it. Well, for each of these focus areas, we have a toolkit. And in each toolkit, you have concrete steps, guiding questions, and practical resources to really help you intentionally go through the scope of work in each focus area. Now, again, when you access the toolkits, do not think this is a rule book. There are no rules here. What we've done is we've devised kind of like the best approach that we've seen so far, some guidance, but we have not provided rules. Everything is designed to be customizable and adjustable to your needs. And that's why it's not even rigid. It's not rigid for you, nor is it rigid to us. As we keep learning and keep partnering with schools, we will keep adding to our design and really our resource bank for schools around these focus areas. So again, even though it's organized, those are still a lot of needs to address. And so how do you figure out where to start? Well, if you click here, you're prompted to review the questions in the hierarchy of needs. So alongside each focus area, we have a brief description. So you can use that and figure out, well, off of that description, is this an area that you feel really confident that you've done the full scope of work in? And then there are guiding questions. So self-assess at this point. Ask yourself the questions, figure out if you have an answer to each, or if you haven't asked yourself some of these questions, and then go back to our leadership toolkit and access the actual toolkit. So let's just do that with one, which is focus one, getting organized. When you click into the hierarchy to access the toolkit, first let's orient to just the overall design. The first page is like the title page. You'll see the hierarchy of needs, you'll see the title. The second page, it gives you an introduction behind the intended purpose of the design or the toolkit. And then there are key terminologies to make sure that terms aren't used interchangeably or incorrectly. And then you'll have this overview. Now, as a former principal, this is my favorite part because I want a balcony view to figure out where I'm going from step one in plan all the way to step three, can continuously improve. What is the roadmap of work behind this focus area? And again, getting organized is a little different than the other phases because it's actually around helping you, the school leader or system leader, think about how you want to address the other focus areas. So when you actually think about like what is the cycle of work embedded in each toolkit, there's this idea that first you plan, then you have to communicate or share those plans, and then you have to step back, reflect so that you can continuously improve. And so you'll see that cycle in each of the toolkits. So let's get back to getting organized. The first step plan is really a process for you to get through identifying your team, not because of an organizational chart, but because of the assets, right? The value add that they'll bring into this new line of work or this new thinking. So step one under plan says asset map your team for potential working group leaders. And the question prompts you to think about both informal and formal leaders. You'll have a space to take notes about initial thoughts, or you can look at the supporting notes and resources and then make your notes, right? But the idea here is that you have steps under plan that you have to get through. And for this section, it takes you through asset mapping your team, figuring out if I'm going to use this working group leader format. Is there going to be a point person for each of the focus areas for hierarchy of needs? And if you are the school leader doing that thinking, how do you intend to reorganize this new leadership team around this work? So I have to think about a charge for my working group leaders. What are they going to monitor, learn, message? What will they create? What will they decide? Then it's this idea that I have to understand the context we're in and the impact that context has on the charge that I aspire to. Then I have to think about that overall charge in terms of, well, what is the timeline I see and what are the major like phases to this work? This is pretty much like the project management guide. We're going to ask you to do this for each focus area you intend to address, especially if you intend to have that work being led by someone else, just making sure that they're aware of like the project management implications of these aspirations. So you'll go through the plan phase. I've identified the people I'm going to hold close around this work. I'm determining new routines. When are we going to meet? How often are we going to meet? And then I'm going to make sure that we have norms around this work together. One of the norms that we've adopted internally is just like at this point, everyone is designing and being creative and think and being innovative. So we don't believe in letting perfection be the enemy of good, right? So that could be a norm that can help you during this time. Um, and just thinking about decision making, like you are still the leader. Now you have these working group leaders. What is the process to decision making? What are the decisions that you intend to make? And what decisions can the working group leader make? I do all of that work and then I think about the communication plan, staff that's going to be assigned to working groups because I want to involve the staff at large. And that's all in the planning phase. After I do that work, I'm ready to communicate. I'm notifying working group leaders of their role. I'm making sure that my working group leaders are normed. And in each of these steps, if there is a recommendation for a meeting, you'll have a sample agenda just to be able to help you through what a meeting around this topic or a meeting to answer this guiding question would look like. Um, and it just goes on to the last part of our cycle, which is continuously improve. Now you'll note that when we determined the charge, there was a determination around timeline and phases. So we have to really think about within each phase and each expressed timeline, what am I listening for? What data am I collecting? Is there a tool behind me implementing my scope of work, right? You're going to do this and you're going to think about, well, how often do I need to connect with my team, right? Because with each opportunity to reflect on what you've collected and heard and observed is an opportunity for you to really iterate on your initial design work, right? I want to get better. I want to make sure that if I'm attacking work around engagement, for instance, that it continuously gets better for students and families, and our efforts have evolved in terms of engaging families, right? That can only happen through reflection. So that is what this last part of our cycle really names this idea that you continuously improve. And because of that, you recognize that this workbook is never really over, right? You planned, you communicated, and shared that plan. And now this cycle of continuously improvement and improving just really makes sure that when we reflect on the data that we've collected, I may be prompted to plan something again, or I may need to communicate some adjustments or some enhancements that were added to the initial or original aspirations. So, again, if you feel like you have some questions around who your leadership team is during this time, you're going to access Getting Organized, the first focus area of our hierarchy of needs.